I
don't know.
It must be a love thing. He's in love. Now you
Folks, we're
can
gonna call this
game.
meeting to order in a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll give them a few minutes.
We got a few folks missing still.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can I hear you? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
We hear you. I just had it on you. We hear you.
Okay.
Good. So that's 3, so that's better.
Hi.
Hi, how
How
are
you
you,
doing
Chief?
today?
Great. How y'all doing?
I am
No.
excellent, thank you.
Oh, look at that. That's what time was it? What time?
Hi, Alderwoman Campbell.
Hello? Who was that?
Captain Sanders.
It's Chief.
Oh,
Chief. Chief, what you call it?
did he just get in the car?
I have to think too before I say it. I'll get used
It's okay.
I'll get used to
In
it.
my mind, I will forever be Sergeant Sanders. I was there the longest, and so
Right.
and it has a ring to it. Sergeant Sanders. So
Sergeant Sanders was like, wait a minute, no, she's Chief.
sometimes I still answer the phone. I'm like, Normie, please, this is Sergeant
Wait a minute.
Sanders.
Yeah.
Chief Captain. What? Have you ever been a
That's
captain? What's
Colonel,
I was. Now it's Colonel.
you're a colonel.
But I hate Colonel Sanders because everyone makes the chicken reference.
I did say that one. Like, I said Colonel Sanders. I'm like, wait a minute,
That's
a
why I
chicken.
say Chief, I don't,
I say Chief too. They're like, this is Colonel Sanders. I'm like, okay, listen. I don't have 11 herbs and spices, but I do have a secret recipe.
yeah, there you go. There you go.
Right.
Yep.
I'm sleepy.
It's the weather.
I said to, girl, it's the weather, it's the little things coming from the trees, my allergies.
All the
are-
pollen.
All that pollen. I'm up there digging up hostas today, because everybody coming to my house to get hostas.
Are you giving away hostas?
Greg, had 100.
To give away?
I don't need them.
Are you still giving away hostas?
I could look at my yard lady just came and got a chunk of them today.
If she don't have any, talk to Miss Pat,
Honey, I got some,
across
look,
from me.
but Pat just picked some up for me.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she,
I just bought probably about $500 worth of plants from Home Depot from a little flower bed by my front door. And it's got a lot of hostas in it. Last year I put about 15 in there, and this year about 7 returned. So, yeah.
hostas are hard to, I mean,
Yes, they are.
mine pop up right now, God, they're so beautiful, mine are really beautiful, but I'm not outdoors like that. But they got some in the back of the garage, it's like a chunk of here and a chunk there and a chunk there, I'm like,
You know, once they get a good root system, they're good. But when they're new, the Home Depot, they only sell the tiny ones.
Yes.
So last year, the deers came and ate all the one along the front, so got the salad
we
garden
got
for
deers.
them.
Yeah, we don't have those, so.
Yeah, they ate all of those. So this year I planted marigolds around the edge, because they said that the deer hate the marigolds.
Oh,
And then I put the liquid fence, but like the
Hanging
pellets,
longer, we're just waiting on a
Yeah.
couple.
so that way the pellets stay longer than the spray.
Yeah,
So I mean, it stinks, but
All right.
I can imagine.
I could use some of the big ones.
what the, hostas?
Yeah.
Girl, look
Mine are
good.
so little.
You might have to come to my house then, cause yeah. Now you can't take the one by the fence, cause that's beautiful, but the other
Don't
ones
tease
are,
me with a good time. I
girl, these things, you come to my house whenever you want to
Hey,
come.
Tony,
Yeah, you-
how far out are you?
by my house, right here.
Oh, good. Yeah, you're our
Get
core.
ready to go like this.
oh here
They
I
are
I
beautiful.
appreciate it.
Then they came home, she was like,
So
Bree and
David's logging in now. Tony's here.
okay, I thought Trinity was coming.
Yeah, he's in the parking lot.
Okay.
Bree and I were gonna clean out the flower bed along the front again, because her and Michelle did it last year. And I told her, I said, I think what we should do is, first, let's put some weed killer down this year so the weeds don't come back, so we don't have to keep doing this. I
Right.
said, then also, why don't we break, because the hostas that grow in this flower bed, I mean, they're huge.
Yeah.
I said, we should probably break those up and kind of move them down to kind of take the space, because once it's full, it'll kind of maintain itself. It'll look
Yes.
It'll look real nice.
I had some right here and some right there. Pat got the ones from off by the fence. I don't get those. And she took them all off the fence. I mean, she got at least 5.
Woman leg, woman leg.
All right.
How are you, Charlie?
What's up? Everybody's running,
She
man.
said,
Oh,
I said
man.
about 25 or more. Yeah, I got a bunch. They just, you plant one and they split like into 2 or 3.
Mine are still in the baby stage, I wanna get to that baby.
6:30.
Oh, girl.
Here I come, don't you say no more.
Yeah, we'll be.
Good.
Two.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
David,
yeah. Yes,
Yolanda on the Zoom.
Is
that's
David, signed in?
All right.
As soon as David gets
I saw you
logged
coming
in,
out
I'll
like-
open the meeting.
I said, he said he was coming. He said he's gonna be on Zoom. I'm like, okay.
Tony,
But
did you
he's not
see my
gonna be-
email about the sign?
Yeah. Well, when people, you know, that's helping me, they say, oh, we'll meet you at 6:30. I said, okay, well, that'll work.
Okay, good. Yeah, good, good. We got you for a minute.
Yeah.
Anybody, has anybody talked to,
Kevin.
Rick?
no, Debbie Rasso? She had her surgery today.
Oh,
Oh,
I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
She just said she
She
wasn't coming.
said that she probably wouldn't be up to it.
No, I know she won't be here. I wonder how she's doing.
Oh, she said she's doing fine. She said everything went well.
Good, good, good.
Good.
so who we waiting on, David?
David's gonna log in via Zoom and he should be here like just any second.
Okay.
We're bringing Emma back to the doctor in the morning.
Oh, really?
She started running fevers.
Oh, God.
Sam,
That's a good idea to leave it plain.
is Kiana logging in?
Instead of a light, you'll have the,
I'll be taking roll call.
you'll have the green lettering, you know, the big lettering, and Lord Manor.
Right.
Well, that's right, we got a recording, you'll
You'll
go
have
back
black
from this,
trim.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it would look good.
It would, then you don't have to paint it as much.
Right.
Because that light, you don't have to paint that.
Yeah.
David?
Hello, Andy. You're good, because you're not the last one here, because we're still waiting on a quorum. So take a breath.
There's a shooting right down the street from my office. So
Oh, no.
traffic was a nightmare getting out of downtown.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that on the news. Yeah, we had a lot of people in lockdown.
And Crisis?
No, downtown. Right by the Arch, somewhere by the Arch Keener Plaza.
Yeah, I was at 7th and Market. I don't think they caught us. So we were all like trying to walk to the garage. And,
Yeah, it was some guy up there.
Yeah, I don't know either, I didn't get a chance to watch.
After about 15 minutes, I figured out.
There you go.
Doing well,
I read it.
it's been a long week.
I'll talk to you later.
I have some weak questions for you.
Okay,
Right?
where's permit?
Favorite time.
I should have asked for that.
Yeah.
Some evidence disposal questions.
Who's at home? I got the number.
Old weak cases.
There it is.
It's in about 15 minutes.
Is he on now?
He's on.
Okay,
Well, connecting the audio, okay, I think we're good.
all right, let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilman Saxonheimer.
Here.
Councilwoman Cleveland.
Here.
Councilman Evans.
Here.
Councilwoman Smith. Councilman Hong.
Here.
Councilman Nelson. Councilwoman Rosso. Councilwoman Campbell.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Thank you. All right, first item of business, discussion of bids received for the sale of vacant properties. As you're aware, we've got several vacant lots that we're trying to get out of our inventory. Sam, can you give us the details of what you received?
Yes, so as we discussed prior to, we've discussed before with council how we wanted to do this process. I sent out a letter earlier this month to adjacent property owners, asking them to bid on the vacant properties and letting them know that the minimum bid was 10% of the assessed value of the property. Those letters went out and we had a bid opening yesterday, and then I also let the bidders know that we'd have a chance to discuss it here at this council meeting. So we sent out on 7 properties, 7732 Augusta, 5401 Bermuda, 5304 Kirkland, 5313 Aleen, 7515 San Diego, 7648 Stanwood Drive, and 3630 St. Mary Lane. We received 5 out of 7. We did not receive any bids on 5304 Kirkland or 7648 Stanwood. So I can read the bids to the council now if they'd like, or just give a brief summary. It's kind of.
I think a summary will suffice.
Okay.
The bottom line is,
On 7732 Augusta, we received 1 bid from adjacent property owner Doug Aiken, and there's no other adjacent property owner. So as soon as we get, so we can move forward with that one, and we'll bring that to the May meeting for the council to vote for accepting it. On 5401 Bermuda, we received 2 bids, one from Jeremy Kelly, who lives at 5385 Bermuda. It's a single-family household. His bid was for $1,500, and then we received 1 bid from TEO Investments at 5409 Bermuda. That's a multifamily apartment complex, and they bid $3,500. I believe Mr. Kelly stated that he wanted to kind of just expand his yard, potentially do a lot consolidation one day and build a garage, while TEO, the apartment building, identified the space to potentially expand their parking lot.
Okay.
So,
Now, would they need like, have that property rezoned?
yes.
Okay.
I believe almost in both cases. Right now, it's depending on what they want to do in both cases. Right now, it's zoned neighborhood shopping, which is a restricted commercial district.
Right.
And then also, if they wanted to build an adjacent structure or an accessory structure, they would need a lot consolidation, because you can't have a lot just with a garage on it.
Right.
The garage has to be attached to a house or be an accessory to a house. So, again, and again, we're not accepting the highest bid necessarily, we're accepting what the council thinks is the best bid, so.
Okay.
Two very divergent uses there to consider. On 5313 Aleen, we received only 1 bid from an adjacent property owner. He said he also wants to expand his yard, potentially have a garage one day. He bid $500, and the minimum was $306. On 7515 San Diego, this is an empty lot at the very end of San Diego. We invited City Heights Investments to bid, and they own a single family house. And then we also invited the Legends at Pasadena Hills, which is the large apartment complex, which that empty lot butts up near their pool. And they have a good fairly large strip of land that they already mow there. So they both bid, and let me pull the dollar amounts on those. City Heights bid $150, where the Legends at Pasadena Hills bid $100. So there's really no meaningful difference there. It's kind of a question, do we want this to be an extension of the single-family household, or do we want it to be an extension of a larger
Complex.
property and apartment complex? Both are LLCs, and
Okay.
so, and are owned by LLCs. I assume that City Height rents. I can confirm that though. And then 3630 St. Mary's, we only had 1 bidder. They said that they'll maintain the lot and that they like the view. So that's I don't think they're planning to do anything
Okay.
on it necessarily.
and the plan then is for us to vote on these at the regular May meeting.
Was there a lot on Normandy Place?
There was a lot on Normandy Place, but it didn't go out in this bid. In this bid round,
Okay.
Because I think we need to decide, there is no, the adjacent lot owner, but our lot butts up right next to Lucas Hunt, and the adjacent lot owner is Beyond Housing. And the gentleman on Normandy Place who butts up against that lot said that he'd be interested in both lots, but it's something we would need to talk to Beyond Housing with. And then also, we, need to decide if we wanna sell that, or if it has any future value. So,
Okay. Yeah, we'll address that. All right, any questions, concerns? If you, I mean, there's be a summary put together before the next meeting, and then we'll take a vote on these bids at that time.
Cause I have,
I'm sorry, I got.
Oh, I'm just saying, there's gonna be a summary put out before the regular May meeting.
No. I didn't hear it. You said that it's the house and then Beyond Housing lot and then the empty.
yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct, and we're not gonna consider that until the council has a conversation about whether we wanna retain that lot for any future use, or in fact, we do wanna sell that lot. We haven't had that conversation. The other ones were obvious, they're residential lots. So, yeah, we'll have that conversation also at the meeting when we address the rest of these bids. Now, we have with us, Councilman-elect Kevin Jackson is here, and although you can't vote on anything, because you are a council person-elect, I do want to invite you to participate in any conversation we have. Thank you. All right, next item of business. Resolution 23-10, a resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into agreements to provide police and court services to the City of Cool Valley. These are separate agreements. We put them on the same resolution. And the details were provided in the packet for you. We've been working under an extension with Cool Valley for some time now. Let's take a motion first, and if there's questions and concerns, we'll address them at that time. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 23-10?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any questions, concerns, or comments about entering into police service contract with Cool Valley, both for police service and on a separate contract to court services?
Yes,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Steve.
I knew there was issues before.
Yes?
Has those issues been worked out, and are we comfortable in doing this as
Um,
a city?
I'm comfortable in doing this because there are some back pay issues. They're addressed in the contract.
Okay,
They need to be caught up in 90 days. And then there's escape clauses in the contract. And beyond that, I might let Andy jump in if there's any other concerns regarding, not the comfort level, but the security of this contract.
yeah, I just don't want to see us get locked into something that we're gonna seriously lose money.
If there's an issue of non-payment, if that's your concern.
Yes.
I think it's well addressed within the terms of the contract.
Okay,
There's a 90-day, I believe it is a 90-day, notice to get out of the contract. So, worst case scenario, it's 3 months of missed payments and then we cut
Okay.
out. What is nice about this contract is, and Cool Valley has obviously agreed to it, is we will be receiving a large sum of payment that was due on the prior contract as well. So we'll be making a large payment.
okay.
Karen, you had questions?
I just have concerns. I mean, I know we've already have a contract with Cool Valley, but my concerns now that we're short a police officer here in Normandy, I have concerns that they're not even in Normandy. Like, we need them on Bermuda, we need them in Ward 1, I can speak for Ward 2, but we need them to control our area. And if we're gonna keep going, get into these agreements with people that, I know we're back paid, I need to see them. Our citizens need to see them, and I'm concerned about that. Because right now Bermuda is a hot
Yeah,
mess.
especially Bermuda Road, I mean.
Yeah, and I will allow Chief Sanders to address that, but my position on what you're concerned with, the extra income outweighs, because without it, we may be in worse condition. But I'll go ahead. Do you have a response?
I do. So when we took the Cool Valley contract a decade ago, it was budgeted that we were going to hire 6 staff members for that contract. Over the years, we lost 2 bodies, and right now the contract was paying for 4 bodies, but they had their own dedicated policemen. In this new contract negotiation, they do not have a dedicated policeman any longer. They're sharing a policeman with a North Sector car. So basically, Normandy benefits from them paying the salary of the officers. And that's what this contract does, pays for the salary of the officers that Normandy has no obligation to necessarily pay for. In the contract that we have with them is paying for an officer that's shared between Cool Valley and the northern sector of Normandy. Right now, we were already down 4 officers prior to my appointment from the previous administration. And then we suffered 4 additional losses. To the 4 additional losses, we thought we were catching up and making some headway because we had 3 people sponsored in the academy, and then we just hired 2 people. We got the school contract back. They're looking for more SROs. Well, we had to let one of the recruits in the academy go, so we went from 3 to 2. We hired 2 people, one of them went to the school, so we lost 4. We gained 4, but we're still down.
Right.
And so with us being down manpower, irrespective of this contract, down manpower is just down manpower. And I hope that we can address some of those things when we, kind of discuss what some of the issues are with attracting qualified applicants and try to hopefully give us some type of edge or some sort of incentive to attract viable candidates that will be good for police service. But right now, our daytime manpower minimum right now is 3 dedicated patrolmen on days, and minimum manpower is 4 on nights. Ideally, we're supposed to have 4 people on days and 5 on nights. Not including traffic cars, but we don't have traffic cars moving because we have to worry about patrol. We have to staff the patrol division, the people that are answering the calls. So right now, during the daytime hours, because we do have 2 people in the Detectives Bureau, myself, and another administrative staff, we actually have about 6 or 7 people during the day for critical incidences, where if things are happening, there's shootings, there's, God forbid something terrible happens, all the administrators, including myself, we're out there and I'm going to calls. I'm going to burglaries, I'm going to robberies, I'm going to those things myself. I'm stopping cars before and after work on my way in and on my way home. So we're stretching the manpower that we have pretty thin, but we acquiesce on day shift to put 3 people on days because we have so much administrative staff here that can help in a crisis. At night, we can't go with less than 4 people. Our minimum staffing on nights is 4 people. And it's a bonus sometimes if I'm hanging around here till 10 o'clock at night and something comes out, or our bureau's here till 10 or 11 o'clock. So the good thing about the contract is, this contract used to pay for 6 salaries, specifically for the city of Cool Valley. The way the contract is written, and if you look at the terms and conditions, it now pays for 2 staff members, 2 bodies, that basically Normandy shares the benefit of, and Normandy doesn't incur any expense.
Thank you. So, Andy, because this is a resolution that involves a contract issue, do I need a roll call vote?
No, it's just a resolution, so.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a voice vote.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? We have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 23-10. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
Is this resolution due?
All right, Resolution 23 dash, I'm sorry.
I said, did David say? I didn't hear David.
I did not.
Okay.
I thought I heard him.
So that is a yes for high school?
Resolution 23-11, a resolution of the city of Normandy, Missouri authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with a professional mechanic for the maintenance of city-owned vehicles and equipment. We talked about this at the last meeting. Andy put together a contractor's agreement, and I'm looking for it. The term, what did we end up with the terms on this? A 1-year or a 2-year, Sam?
Looks like it's a 24-month
20, okay, good.
term.
A 2-year agreement, which just binds us to the terms. He's not committed to 2 years, we're not committed to 2 years, but as long as we're engaged with this guy, these are the terms, and he works at $85 an hour, we're bringing him in twice a month for routine maintenance and work on the equipment as needed. His first project is gonna be our backhoe that hasn't moved in 4 years because nobody can start it, right? Okay. Is there a motion to approve resolution 23-11?
Make a motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Comments, concerns, questions? All in favor of adopting resolution 23-11, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, Sam has for us a presentation to give us some tools to work on a pay plan that we need to put together. The plan is for him to give a presentation and then for us to give him some feedback, and then he'll be working based on the feedback that we give him, a recommended pay plan for the city. Now, I will tell you from listening to this, it's gonna generate questions. I would like questions to remain, jot them down, wait for the end of the presentation, because the more you hear, the more sense it makes. And some of your questions may be answered in the course of him giving his presentation. So, if you would, Sam.
I guess I'm gonna stand up here, so. All right, and like the mayor said, this is not the pay plan, this is a review of a salary survey, which is gonna be the information that informs the council in making decision on what the pay plan looks like. And so, again, the goal of the salary survey is like I just said, to inform you guys, identify that positions that are underpaid compared to what other municipalities pay, foster discussion about which department need to be invested into, bolster recruitment and retention of employees through informed decisions regarding pay. And so the approach for this survey is there was 2 data sets that I was able to use. One is a salary survey that the Missouri Municipal League puts out, and they send out a survey every year, and they say, hey, if you have this position in your city, please tell us what your starting pay and your ending pay is for that position, and they send it back, and then the MML shares it with everyone. And it's a really great tool. It's the primary data set that we use for the salary survey. The only problems, I tend to find that North County communities seem to be underrepresented because you have to have someone there to fill out the salary survey. It takes some time out of your day. And not all the positions that we have are actually on the salary survey, and then there's some ambiguity because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but they say, tell us what your court clerk does. But they don't tell you if they mean the head court clerk or the assistant court clerk. And so different cities are submitting different things, and we're able to parse some of that out. But that's why we also, I also supplemented that with some information from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Every year they sunshine request every city in the county and the surrounding counties, and they ask you exactly how much everyone made, and they put the name on their website and how much you made. The problems with that data set, one, it doesn't give you any idea of the range. If someone worked overtime, you're going to see how much they made in overtime. If they only worked half a year or worked part-time, you're not going to be. So there's problems with that data set. And there's problems with the MML data set, but we put them both together to increase the sample size. And you'll note I know I sent it out via email, and then this is the whole salary survey, which I encourage you to go take home and thumb through. But I do note on which, what the source is for each entry. So using the data set, we can look at all the different midpoint salaries that are reported, and we can look at how they compare to each other using some basic statistics. I don't want to scare anybody, but I am going to give just a brief, I'm going to be giving just a brief crash course on some statistic terms. And then like Mayor Beckman said, I think it will make some sense as we move along into it. But again, there are some shortcomings in the data sets, and then also, if you want to get a true salary survey done, and let's say you pay a consulting agency $10,000, $15,000 to do it, they're gonna do an extra step that was not done here, and they're actually gonna dig into each job description of the data set, because there's lots of different factors that go into what a city pays. One of course is the cost of living of the area, which is generally the same, although there's probably differences between North County, West County, South County, and St. Charles. The scope of services that the city provides. So does their public works department, are they also the utility department? Or are they just kind of mow and fill potholes, which is more on our side? Because the public works department in Chesterfield is going to have a lot more public works projects that, and really their public works director probably needs to be a city engineer as well. So, and then also kind of just how much money the city has. If they have more money, they're going to be able to pay better. But more than anything, you have to really consider the job description, because titles are one thing, but they don't mean anything unless the job descriptions match. So you got to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. We don't have the job descriptions of some of these, or most of these, and it's kind of beyond the scope of what I think we need to do to get a basic pay plan in place, but it's something that we have to keep in mind. So here's the crash course in statistics. So I don't know, I think I remembered learning this in middle school very briefly, but mean, median, and mode, if that rings a bell. Mean is also sometimes called an average. You take a set of values, you add them all together, and you divide them by the number of values, and it gives you the middle point of the values. So the median, on the other hand, is you line up all the values in a row, and you find the value that's the middle number. So you cross off the first value, cross off the last value until you get to the middle number, and then that's your median. So it's slightly different. It controls for extremes a little bit more, which tend to pull the average in one way or another. And then standard deviation is one that they didn't teach you in middle school, but they do teach it in high school and college if you take a statistics course. The definition of that is a quantity calculated to indicate the extent of deviation from a group as a whole. So, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but you know, especially when you're looking at salaries and like the list of every city, you know, the tables that are in the salary survey here. $1 for a public works laborer an hour is going to go a lot farther than $1 an hour for, let's say, the chief of police or even a police officer. So standard deviation gives you a comparable number. That way, when you're looking at two different positions that pay very differently, you'll have an idea of basically how much dollars it takes to make a difference. It's kind of one way to think about it. So every salaries and a lot of things in life, including salaries, fall on what's called a normal distribution or a bell curve. So in the bell curve, you have the middle, which is the highest point, that's the average, and then from there on you tail out. So you basically, if you have a bell curve, a true normal distribution, everything is the same distance from the average, and it's not pulled too much one way or another. And as you move further towards the tails of the bell curve, you're getting into more and more into the extremes. And this goes into standard deviation. So if you're one standard deviation away from the bell curve, or between -1 standard deviation and +1 standard deviation, you have 68% of your population. And once you get to -2 standard deviation and +2, you're talking about 95% of your population. So 95% of any sample set is going to fall between -2 and +2. And then once you get to 3 and further out, you're talking about extremes. And we're talking about fairly small data sets. Most of these are 30 to 40, so we're not going to see any 3 or 4 standard deviations. But, so to kind of put that in reality, this is a really good example. Height in U.S. males and females follows a normal distribution. So the average height in America for a man is 5'10". The standard deviation is 3 inches. So if you are 6'1", you're 1 standard deviation above the average. If you're 6'4", you're 2, and if you're 6'7", you're 3. And when you get into that 3 and 4, now you're talking about like NBA players. But when we get to some of these salaries, and I say, you know, it's -1.5 standard deviation, you're talking about someone who's less than 5'6". You're talking about a fairly short person, or on the positive side, you're talking about a pretty tall person. Not that they, you know, these people exist, you see them every day in your life, but you probably don't see a 7-foot tall person every day in your life. And again, hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but now we'll actually get into the salaries, and hopefully it was enough information to make this make sense. So I'm just gonna, from this point on in the presentation, I'm just gonna go along with the salary survey packet that you have together. And I think you can even see the page number here at the bottom. So this is page 2. We're just gonna start in the Public Works Department. You'll see this is the curve for a public works laborer. It's actually not a very normal distribution. It's kind of flatter, which means you have extremes on both ends. But the average pay for a public works laborer in the area is $19.98 an hour. There's a standard deviation of $2.85. And we currently pay $17 an hour for public works laborers. Which means that we have it, and the Z-score was the other one. Z-score means it is how many standard deviations you are away from the average. So we have a Z-score of -1, that means we are 1 standard deviation below for public works laborers. Now, generally, on anything with a graph, if you're on the left side and you're on the negative standard deviation, you're going to be attracting less qualified people with less experience, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to be the reality. If you're on this side of the curve, on the positive side, you're going to be attracting people with experience. And also the problem with retention is if you are attracting people on the negative side of the curve, they stay, they get their experience, they're going to move to the positive side of the curve, unless you give them a reason to stay. But it's something to consider. So as we go through, it's going to be important to think about where most of our positions are falling on these curves and look at standard deviation. We're going to see a lot of our positions fall at -1, which is on the cusp of when you're getting into more extreme. Again, if you're, you know, about 70% of the population falls within ±1. But once you get past, you know, -1, you're paying less than like 80% of people. And then also everything on here is midpoints. That's another thing to consider. Our lines, because we don't have a pay plan, we don't really have midpoints. Unfortunately, we do in the police department. But because we don't have a pay plan yet, a lot of times we're putting starting pay on here, and so that's another thing to consider. So we can set our midpoint a little bit higher, not necessarily even have to give a raise, just set our steps up ahead. So this is a chart. So again, I'm not recommending I don't have a pay plan for you tonight, but here's some examples of things that we could do for the public works laborers, and it's probably pretty hard to read from where you're at, but you should have a packet as well. Did you have one? Let me get you. Oh, here, you can.
That's Rick's number.
Do you need one to work out? I've seen it and I can follow it on that screen right
No,
now.
I don't. I was gonna give one to Councilman-elect Jackson. So, up here on the left, which is the green, if I marked it green, I think that's means I'm probably gonna recommend it when I present a pay plan. So on the green means we keep the current rate as our step one base rate. And then in here, you see there's a version where we increase it at 2% and a version where we increase it at 1.5% per year. And that's another decision that the council's gonna have to make is how much do we want to go up each step, how many steps do we want to have? But for tonight's purposes, I did 6 steps with 2 options, 1.5% and 2%. So, and then you can see here on the top right, we have z equals -1 at step 3, which basically means we're going to adopt our midpoint at -1 standard deviation. As you can see, that would put, you know, our third year, we maintain $17.13 an hour. And then we have we want to set our midpoint at -1/2 of the standard deviation. And then we have an option where we want to set our midpoint at average. And then here at the bottom, you can see the budget impact. So right now, if we were to adopt, like, let's say tonight, we adopted, which I don't recommend that we do this tonight necessarily, but we adopted the average as our midpoint, we would have a budget impact of $16,000 because we have 3 laborers, and that's what the increase would entail. And then here, I also noted the average grade creep. That's how much your budget's going to go up each year from people just moving up a step. So that's the first one. Hopefully we can start moving through these a little bit faster. The next one is Public Works Director.
What page are you on?
This is page 6.
Thank you.
I didn't include the tables on the
Gotcha.
PowerPoint, so it's just the graphs and the steps. The average pay in the area for a Public Works Director is $92,000 with a standard deviation of $30,000. That's a really large standard deviation, and this isn't a perfectly normal distribution either. In fact, it's a distribution where you have quite a few extremes on the low end and quite a few extremes on the high end, and then a fairly large gap across the average. And I would guess that's because you have 2 very different types of public works departments in the area. Just like I said earlier, you have public works departments that are responsible for way more street miles. Some are responsible for utility departments, and ours is more potholes and mowing grass. So, you know, on that right hand of the curve, that's going to be your wealthier cities, but also your cities that have more responsibilities for their public works department. We fall at -0.9 standard deviation, so about 1. And then again, I recommend current as the base with a 2% increase. If the council is interested in increasing the pay, or actually, and one of these would actually decrease the pay, but if you're interested in increasing the pay, this is some of what the budget impacts would look like and where they would start and top out. And this is kind of an interesting one because we're currently hiring for this position. We posted from 60 to 70,000, just to kind of give us room in case we pass this before we end up hiring someone. But I think, given the applicants that we've attracted so far, I think we're good at kind of where we're at. So, the city clerk moving out of Public Works into the admin office. The average pay for a city clerk is about $71,000 with a standard deviation of $15,000. Our pay right now is $65,000, which places in not a terrible position for a starting pay of basically negative 0.4. And again, this is a job duties thing. The city clerk is responsible for taking minutes and filling sunshine requests in a lot of cities. Our city clerk is responsible for accounts payable and a lot of finance functions. And so we rely pretty heavily on having a high-skilled city clerk, and she does a very good job. So, but again, we're not doing terrible, especially if that's going to be our starting step. We're not that far from the average. So, and again, I don't think I had a recommendation on this one, but it is the current as base. Setting the midpoint at -1 would actually be a pay decrease, which I don't recommend that we entertain. But if we wanted to set the midpoint at the average, it would be a small increase of $3,000 to the budget. And then, yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add on that. All right, city administrator, I don't really like talking about myself, but I'll just give you the information. The average pay for a city administrator, it's the widest distribution of all the positions, because some city administrators make a lot of money. And so I think it tops out like $220,000 in Kirkwood or something like that. So that can skew things. But on the other end, when that's kind of where we're at, there's the other extreme. So the average is 131,000, standard deviation of $38,000. I mean, the standard deviation is more than what first laborers are at. So, and we are at a Z-score of -1.61. So pretty low in the standard deviation. Here's some. Again, every one of these, I just did 3 options where we set the midpoint at -1, -0.5, and average. And so I'm not going to make a recommendation on my salary. I think that'd be a conflict of interest. So, but obviously we can discuss that at a future time. But as a matter of pay plan, here's where it is. So, code enforcement officer. This is another one that this is the one that we're in the lowest position on. Average pay is $25.08. There's a standard deviation of $3.52 an hour. I did this one in hourly. Our code enforcement officer currently makes $19 an hour. So that puts them almost at -2, which is pretty steep considering the size of the sample. I mean, we only have 40 cities to choose from. -2, you're talking, your chances of running into someone who is, 5'4" isn't that uncommon, but you see thousands of people a day. We're talking, what if you only saw 40 people a day? What's the chance that you're going to run into someone who's 5'4"? So, I am recommending not the current as based on this one. I think we should adopt, or consider adopting and discuss adopting the midpoint at -0.5 the standard deviation. Code enforcement officials do have certifications, and they have to know basically an entire book. I would almost say, well, it is law because we've adopted it as law, but they have to know the international building codes and the International Property Maintenance Code. It's a pretty specialized role. They also have to they deal with the public, which does create a safety risk for the position as well. It's not an easy job, and you do have to have knowledge. And luckily, we have a guy who I think absolutely does. So, and even if we didn't, I think we want to attract someone who does have that knowledge. So, moving on to courts. Court clerk was the one on the MML survey that was particularly tough. Some cities call their here at Normandy, we call the supervisor or the department head in courts the court administrator. Then we call everyone underneath the court administrator court clerks, plural. Other cities, I think Florisant's one of them, they call their main person the court clerk, and then everyone else is assistant court clerks. So this caused some confusion on the MML survey. So on this, we relied mostly on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And it's also a position which has been changing so rapidly because of the court reform bills and a software system I'm not going to go into it called Show Me Courts. But basically, everyone who's a court clerk for 20 years, their entire world changed and all their previous knowledge was just upended. And frankly, Show Me Courts is a terrible system to use, and it makes everyone's life really difficult, at least from what I've been told. So the premium on court clerks has gone up considerably in the past few years. So average pay is $21.23 an hour with a standard deviation of 418. We currently pay our court clerks $20 an hour, which puts them at negative 0.3 standard deviation for starting pay. That's not bad at all. By the time they top out, by the time they make midpoint, an average. So I think we're in a pretty good place on court clerks.
Hey, Sam.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. If we could have everyone else muted, I'm getting background noise. Thank you.
Sure. Is Rick's iPhone, is that Rick Nelson? I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
I
that's
saw him
Nelson.
earlier.
I'll mute my phone. That's Nelson. I'm hitting there now.
Okay. Okay, and then again, as I just referred to, the court administrator, which is a department head level position, the average pay is $30 an hour. That's one of those positions where you kind of start to consider it annually, and some court administrators are salaried. Average pay of $63,000 a year, standard deviation of almost $14,000 a year. Ours currently makes $57,000 a year. And so we are at negative 0.4 standard deviation with our current pay for court clerks. I recommend that we adopt, preliminary recommend, again, I'm really interested in your guys' feedback. But I think we should think about adopting 2750 as step 2 in our plan, and kind of build out from there. And then here's some other options. The only one that would actually be an increase in pay would be if we set the midpoint as average pay. Police clerk, this is the only position where we are currently above the average on, and again, it's a job duties thing. Our police clerk is also our prosecuting attorney clerk, which there isn't a whole lot of data on. And they're also our housing clerk. The duties list is quite long, and it's not one of those things where they're this half the day and this the other half of the day. Her day's pretty full with everything. And that's because we knew that we're not going to be able to have a large front office staff, so we want to get people who can handle a lot. So again, I would recommend adopting current pay as step 2, And, but again, of course, interested in some feedback there. Chief of Police, the average pay for a chief of police in the area is $114,000 with a standard deviation of $20,000. And we currently have our pay set for police chief at $95,000. So we're at a Z-score of -0.9. I recommend setting the current as base with some room for growth. Again, it's just one position. A 2% raise each year is it's a decent amount of money when you get that high. And the budget impacts of moving that up are fairly significant, especially if you move towards the average. Police lieutenant salaries, and we're almost done here, so, and then we can get into questions. Thank you, Councilman.
All right.
Police lieutenant is one that the MML had in their survey. We currently do not have a lieutenant. We have an unfilled captain's position, which is probably pretty equivalent to what a lot of lieutenants are in police departments, but it's one of those, it is probably the biggest example of, it's a title, but what is the job description? Because some departments will use their lieutenants as road supervisors, while others will use them as administrative staffs and a little bit higher up the chain of command. But either way, the average pay for lieutenants $89,000 with the standard deviation 11,000, almost 12,000. It's currently unfilled, so we kind of get to make an informed decision here about what we want that to be. I will tell you that we may consider making that ahead of the pay time, because it is a position that we are currently we've started the promotional process for. It's a position that we desperately need to fill and promote someone to, because we only, it's just cheap. There's no administrators. She's doing it all. So we need some we need to promote to get people off the road and alleviating some of that burden. Police sergeant, this is another one that we're ranking very low on. The average hourly pay for a police sergeant's $37 an hour with a standard deviation of $6.19 an hour. It's a pretty wide standard deviation. We currently pay $28.59, which is negative 1.4 standard deviation. We're pretty far down the list, and we do have a good group of sergeants. So, and then I don't have tonight a recommendation for the entire police step and grade, because it's a step and grade. Unlike the other positions, it's a step and grade that needs to be planned out, how it goes from officer to corporal and sergeant. And we have some, I do have some drafts, but I don't think anything necessarily ready to present yet, because we need to have some more internal conversations with the police and the supervisors, which are set for next week. So, police officer. We are on, again, this is another one that we're on the back half of the curve. And for our midpoint, we are at -1 standard deviation. The average pay is almost $30 an hour now, or about $61,000 a year. And we currently pay, at midpoint, $53,000. So that, and then summary of all positions. Everything that I just talked about, it's all up there, but then this graph is really helpful, because it tells you, it's basically the list of who's closest to the average. And the people further down the list, these longer bars here, are probably something that I think the council definitely needs to be aware that those positions are far away from the average. It could lead to problems with retainment and recruitment if we don't, so.
Good evening.
Good evening. And now we're free to discuss. I'll flip back and forth if there's questions, but.
Thank you. I think everybody needs to absorb this and come to our next meeting with some kind of recommendations as to what, especially page 38. The last four where you're getting below a negative one deviation, that's where we're least competitive. Prioritize what we want to do with those numbers. And all of this, of course, we could decide anything we want. It has to be built with the budget in mind. So these are preliminary discussions that are going to take us into July budget talks.
Right, and that's some things that are sort of prepared in some of those step plans. But, you know, we're gonna have an X amount of dollars that we're gonna be able to spend towards increasing salaries, if it's even $1, right? I mean.
So are we
it's
doing
something that-
questions now or later?
Absolutely, yeah. I just wanted Sam to be able to get through his presentation. So now's
We can't ask questions?
now's the time.
Can I ask you a question about Rick? So.
You asked me a question about the code enforcement
Code
officer
enforcement
and
officer.
position, and if you wanted to ask a question about Rick, we could go into
No,
personnel.
okay, so the code enforcer, salary, he came in as part-time, that's $19 an hour, so when you made him full-time, there was never a discussion of his pay going up to increase it, or,
That's correct.
okay,
I think
Yeah,
it was 18 an hour.
no,
it's 19. It's 19, right?
yeah,
Okay, so,
Well, and page 38 again.
Yeah.
He's the one that's the farthest away
right,
from
that's the
that.
reason why I asked, when he
Yeah,
was part-time, so he was, I'm sorry, the code enforcer.
The code enforcement officer.
Yeah, officer was part-time, so now he's full-time, and so you didn't consider raise his pay at that point, is what I was asking.
no, we didn't. I mean, he got, access to benefits,
Okay.
but no, I mean, any pay raises of a current employee have been brought to the council since I've been city administrator. And the only thing else I'll add is he's up on his year, and again, we're talking about the code enforcement
Code
position.
enforcement.
So-
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I add something? I know I'm late, I had stuff to do with it, but he was hired for 3 days.
We can't talk about an individual. We can only talk about
Okay,
the
I'm sorry.
position. We can go into closed session.
If it's necessary, please.
So personnel is on the agenda.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, she just spoke about the position.
The position is all we can discuss.
Okay, the position was hired, they hired for that position for 3 days. And then, a few weeks later, it was, 2 more days were added, and, for full time.
I think it was about 6 months late. Well, no, it was probably about 4 months later.
Yeah, it was months later, yeah.
It was closer towards,
Can
but
you got documents on that? Because I think it was sooner than that.
I can definitely pull the dates.
Yeah, pull that up, because, but the thing, what I'm saying is, he was given the 2 more days without the board's consent. The board had
You
no
can't
knowledge.
talk, is it?
I can say that, can I? That
Can
position,
I recommend that we stop talking about this?
Yeah, we're gonna have a closed session at the end of this meeting.
okay, so the position, once again, the position was a 3-day position. And in a matter of a few weeks that I can recall, along, that job position was given full time.
I don't recalling it being a matter of a few weeks. I'll just add for context, even though I
Okay,
don't.
whether it was or not, the board wasn't informed of that. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't recall that either. I don't know if that was the case or not. We'll have to look at old
Yeah, let's look
meeting
that up.
minutes to see if we authorize the expenditure for a full-time position.
It is a position that's outlined in the code though, and previously it was just unfilled.
Right.
So,
So on, just on page 10, there's a typo.
that doesn't surprise me.
You said page 10?
Yeah. You have PW director and it should be city clerk. On your table, on your chart.
Oh,
Oh,
you.
sorry.
But the other question that I had was, when you took into consideration the data points, were there tiered positions for these? So for instance, like I know that like you wouldn't pay, like do city clerks have tiered positions like a tier 1 city clerk, a tier 2? Or are they, because you wouldn't pay a city clerk who's only had 1 year position, you know, like more towards the average, they would be further away from that.
Are you so you're talking about like the data
Yeah.
we
So,
pulled
like-
it from? Did
Yeah,
it
so
count
like,
for that?
so in those data points, those people don't all have the same experience and
Sure.
certifications, right?
Yeah, and
So is there
and
any
again,
way to-
we don't, and you may have missed that part, but we don't, I didn't pull job descriptions for every
Yeah.
single data point. It's something,
So I guess my question would be, from that average, what is the average
Years of service.
years of service? What is, like, if you're giving us the average, then what is, because those, all of those data points have different descriptors. So what would be the average years of service for a person that's in the,
so everything, and you can pull the table for city clerk, and everything on there, if it's from the MML survey, it has the starting salary and the ending salary. And then we pulled the midpoint from the starting and ending salary, so it's the average of what you're talking about. It's like,
but it doesn't tell you
this is how-
experience, right?
well, they're, you know, if Chesterfield has a starting salary of $30 an hour and an ending salary of $40 an hour, if they were to hire an inexperienced position for that person, they're gonna put them at the $30. If they hired an experienced person, they're gonna put them at the $40. Kind of, it's called lateral entry, and it's not necessarily, different cities use their pay plans differently, but to account for that, we averaged the high and the low, and took the middle, and we did that for every city, and then this is averaging those out.
So what would be a good way to average the
That's-
experience?
I think
Is
the
what I'm
amount of
saying.
that does, actually.
Like, so what would be the average experience of, let's say that chart, that city clerk?
Everything on here is a midpoint.
Okay,
So it took the low, what they pay for the inexperienced person, what they pay for the experienced person. And then it took the middle of that, and then this is placing those on the line. So the middle of the middle is that. But I will tell you, I mean, especially with something like city clerk, you know, Wildwood is not gonna hire an inexperienced city clerk. They're going, you only have one of them, so it's gonna be one of those things where they're gonna get the good ones, right?
well, that's what I'm saying, so what would their average years be for that person? What would the years of experience be for, like you said, Wildwood, for that person?
I see, that's an interesting question.
Because what I'm asking you
But-
for is the average years of experience. I understand that this is the average of salary. What I'm asking you for is like, if we think about these data points, and we say, somebody who's making, is that 90, 39, 39.6.
Yeah,
So that person's making 39.6, which is much lower standard deviation than the average.
right.
What is the average years of that person?
Right, well,
What's the
in
average?
order to have that information, we'd have to do a more full-blown salary survey, and we would need to hire a consultant for that. And they would, instead of using someone else's data set, they would actually mail out surveys, and then they would ask questions, like, can you please, you know, check off this box if this is part of your job description, or can you please send us your job description?
So that would be something
And then
that we
one
would
of the
have to-
things that they would fill out is like, we'd ask is, what is your career experience of your city
So we
clerk?
would have to go into a more in-depth analysis of this data, right?
No, this data is just self-reported and it doesn't have that stuff on it. I'm saying if you really wanted to know that, we would need to hire a consulting firm to do a salary survey and then be very specific in our scope that we want to know.
So then if we did, let's say we did our clerks, court and city, with certifications and experience, is it possible to make them tiered positions? Because clearly you don't want somebody who, like you just said, coming right out of
Yeah.
jump out of the gate. If we say the salary's gonna be 65, and they have no experience, but that is what they're applying for, and it's 65, like how do we make the description, our description, so that, yes, it's 65, but what if they don't have that experience? And it's like, well, you're more like a
Right.
$40,000
So,
person.
yes, and there's absolutely a way to do that. So the way that it was put together tonight, which is, I'm not saying is the best way or even the way I want to do it, just a simple way to look at it to start the conversation. But you would have a wider salary range, and then you would place people on the range based on their certifications. Like, I know you're a school teacher, right? So the school teacher, they have pay scales, and they have a pay scale. We're establishing ranges for a position. That's more of a true pay scale where you have different steps and grades and different certifications bump you up to different grades. With the exception of police officers, unless you have a bunch of people who do the exact same job, which we don't, we're a smaller city, the utility of that is less than it would be in a bigger organization. The only place I think that would have some real utility is in the police department, if that makes sense.
I think Chief Sanders has a question also.
So, a couple things, I noticed that you were asking about years of experience. I saw a post for Wildwood, they were hiring a city administrator, just for example, a few years ago, maybe about a year or two ago, and they posted the job for $140,000. There were no years of service required, but there were educational requirements that needed to be met. So you could have someone straight out of college that has the required degrees, and they could have obtained that position if they were selected, and that was just the base salary. For police officers, similarly speaking, the only prerequisite to being a police officer is graduation from a post-accredited academy. So for police officers, like he was saying, it actually has way less utility regarding years of service, because all of the police departments are struggling just to get qualified bodies in the door, people that are post-commissioned with post-licenses. And the only place you really kind of get into meeting the average years of service is when you start going towards the administrative levels of police work, where the job duties are going to require more intricate skill sets than that of a basic line level policeman.
Councilman Saxon Hammer?
It sounds to me that the job description versus skill sets. When you talk number of years, that doesn't mean much anymore. DOD, the feds, go by skill sets. They don't go by job descriptions anymore. So the number of years doing a certain job, if that's all they did, and I come in there and can do this, this, and this, I'm gonna make more money. For an example, I made more money than my boss the last 10 years I worked, because my skill sets were a range of 5 different people that I qualified for. They hired 2 people to replace me, but those were listed as other duties. So they went by my skill sets, not by a job description. So the number of years don't mean as much as what you can do when you get there. For an example, if we're looking for a public works director for 60 to 70, I don't care about the job description. I want to know what they could do, and based on what they do is what I want to pay them, period. So that's the way I would look at it. So the number of years, I understand exactly what you said, and I understand what he put together. What I'm saying is it's starting to shift now, that the number of years, if you do that same job every year, and you don't expand your skill set possibly with education or experiences, for instance, me, I was deployed to a war zone countless times, so my skill sets went from here to here, way past my boss. So I made more money than my boss, even though I was a different pay grade because of my skill sets. So I think what he's saying, in some instances, and I know that's what the chief is talking about, it's the skill sets is what you're gonna pay for, more than the job description. I agree with you as far as giving them different tiers to kind of
Yeah,
work
because my question is, like,
towards. I agree.
how do we tier it so that experience and certification also, because like you said, like I know on like our pay scale, like for a teacher, and it might, I don't even know if we should have a different pay scale for officers, like from what Chief Sanders was saying, but like when you have different certifications, you get paid in different, like you said, more in different areas, like I'm considered a specialist because I have 3 certifications and I have so many, so you get paid on top of, like you start here, but then you get paid on top of it.
Right.
And everything, so like how would we adjust for that?
It depends on the position.
Yeah.
I mean, teaching is a very large, I guess, industry is the word, and there's a lot of.
I'm just giving that as an
Right,
example.
right,
But what I'm
but-
saying is a clerk just like, it, like, is one position as a clerk the same as any other position as a court clerk, as a city clerk?
And that's why I'm getting, it's like, a teacher is definitely one of those positions where you'll wanna have those different certifications, because you have a large amount of people doing the same variation of the same job, or different variations of the same job, but it's, in certain positions, I would say that is a good idea. I think court administrator is probably the best one, the best example. There's a 6-year process for becoming a certified court administrator.
Oh, okay.
And I think once you're a CCA, you should probably get a pay bump. Or we should attract CCAs by having a separate range for certified court administrators. But for like a public works laborer, there are safety trainings and there are, skills trainings. But it's gonna vary from position to position. Like, and at the school, I mean, do they have similar things for like the janitors and the different positions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, because my question is, like you just said, like, I don't know, and I think this might be something that would be beneficial, maybe everybody else knows and I don't know, but I'm just gonna say, I don't know what someone who is a court administrator, like, goes through to get up there, as opposed to somebody who is a court clerk.
Yeah.
Coming in. I don't know, like a person at this level would normally have these certifications, whereas a person at this level would normally have these certifications and they would have gone through this, so.
Well, and another
So
part.
is there somewhere we have that?
Yeah,
Or-
and that's another part of what is eventually gonna be a part of this. And I don't mean eventually, like it's gonna take a long time, but we're just not presenting it tonight, is the set of job descriptions that go along with this. Because in the job descriptions is when you list out the relevant certifications that are either required or preferred. And if they're preferred, then you could do things like that.
Can I add something? I think everybody is saying some good stuff, but we still have to realize that we can't compare our city with Chesterfield, Wildwood. We have got to understand that we got to compare our city with other third-class cities like Delwood. We've got
Chesterfield is a third-class city.
Chesterfield, third class, and we got to understand the economic development that brings to the city. How much money does Chesterfield bring to their coffer?
Yes.
Are they sitting on 40 million, or what? Tell me.
Way more than that.
You understand? We're sitting on 4 million.
Yeah, and I think Rick, in this graph, we're comparing ourselves to Chesterfield and every city on the negative side also.
Right.
This is the median, right?
And then we're trying,
We're
compare.
comparing to both.
Yeah, with cities that make the kind of budget that we have, so we can work within that. Because we can't pay anybody $125,000 to do the work that we need to do here.
No,
Yeah.
I completely agree, and
So, and even a few years from now, unless we get some great economic development in our city, and we're struggling with our police officers now, trying to pay them, you know, and trying to keep them, because Sanders will tell you, we can't compete with county and other cities. So we're struggling, so.
I would like to address that.
Yeah.
What this does is, we know we can't afford to pay what other cities pay
Yeah.
that have bigger budgets.
Right.
But if we understand that standard deviation, if we want to maintain every position at negative 0.75, it helps us compare how every department is equitable to the other departments. You know, we've got one department at negative 1.73 and one positive 0.14. So we're putting more value on one department than the other. This will help us say, okay, look, we're really not paying this area where we need to be. Maybe we'll make those judgment calls when it's time to put this budget together. But it helps understand a department by department where we are, how competitive we are in that particular field.
right, and again, this is not meant to, I'm not saying we need to get to this average or we're done or anything like that. In fact, I think we should shoot to be negative 7.5, or you can say where we're at, -1, because that's what we can afford. And, you know, someone's got to be on the bottom half of the bell curve, so. But we can make an informed decision. It's for the, you know, maybe we want a really skilled courts department and we don't care that much about police, or we care about the police, we don't care that much about public works. Or, you know, that's the policy decision that council gets to make, and this is reference and a tool to decide, we're really going to invest in these positions, or we're gonna be equitable across the board, or we're gonna invest a little bit more here, and so, yeah, we're not trying to get on this side.
It just helps us know where we need to be to compete, and we may not be interested in competing as, like you say, to what he just
Well,
said.
we have to survive.
Well, there's no question about it.
That's it.
We can only pay what we can
I
afford.
will tell you, when you
But this
get,
is a really good tool.
when you get into the extremes though,
4,800.
that's where you're gonna have a lot of issues, attracting people, keeping people, and keeping them satisfied, so.
The only thing that I, like, we went through a whole lot this year, and I think last year too, a lot of our positions were, like, we had to bump them up during the year, which we saw in the budget, it caused our salaries and admin to swell a little bit. So
Yeah.
I would prefer that whatever we do, we don't take the step of, we need to swell it more. Like, we need more money for these positions, you know, and everything. Like, I figure, like, whatever we do, we need to stick to it, you know? And it needs to be this is the salary, this is what this person is going to get for this position, and sorry,
And so be it.
we are not going, like, I don't want us to pick something that's going to continue, like, every time we turn around, like, every 6 months is,
Right.
this position could be vacant potentially from, like, poaching or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, is there a way for us, which I know this is not a popular decision, is there a way for us to somehow have, after we figure, or maybe even before, to have someone who's an HR consultant look at it and say, like, you guys are on the right track? Because what I don't want to do is, we sit up here and we think we know everything, and then we make up these numbers and we make up these descriptors based off of, I just think I'm a smart person. And then later on down the road, it's like, well, there are factors that you didn't think about. And that's just, I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't wanna make that, a decision like that, because like you said, Normandy still gotta eat. Everybody else gotta eat too, but Normandy gotta eat too. And if we're in a position like where we don't wanna raise taxes, or we don't want people to have their property, you know, like, if we don't wanna do that, I think it's good for our own edification to be like, okay, a 2% raise every year is great, but then where's the 2% coming from?
Yeah.
Well, that's why this goes into July with the budget. This all gets incorporated to our budget conversations. We
But is there a way
we can say whatever we want, but we
Yeah.
can't adopt it unless it fits within the budget. That's,
Is there a way for someone to check, an HR person to check it? Oh,
I would
this
prefer
in.
not to pay for any additional outside.
Well, and frankly, it's what you hired me to do,
Okay,
so, I mean,
it's just, I'm just putting the.
it's your guys' pleasure, but.
And for police, North County Police Chiefs Association and SLAPCA do an annual salary survey for patrolmen all the way to the highest ranks, where they survey every police department in North St. Louis County and the city. So I'll provide that information to Sam, so you guys actually have the actual bona fide numbers.
Did we just give police officers raises last year?
We were at $42,000 when we gave it, or $46,000 when we gave
With
it.
some of the ARPA funds, remember?
We did.
Is there an organization that also does that for clerks and? Is there, do you know?
The MML,
No, what she was saying.
yeah, the MML.
Oh, okay.
What she's talking about is this police-specific version
Okay.
of what is here.
Okay. Again, this is a lot to absorb. So go through each and every one of them, look at the charts. I mean, there's deviation numbers, but there's also impact on budget. And again, this conversation's gonna carry into July. And then when we put our budget together, we're not starting from scratch. We're gonna have an idea of what we wanna do and where we wanna go. And then, unfortunately, with budget restraints, what we're allowed to do. That's gonna be the bottom line.
Did you send us that slide? Is the MML link where you got the information from in there?
Would you like the data set?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I absolutely can. So, one, the information that I used is on the table, and then I will send out the
But does the
Excel sheet.
MML data that you were talking about, talk about experience in those?
No,
No.
no, it just, it's what in front of you, it tells you what the minimum and the hourly,
Okay.
it's part of the limitations of the set.
We have that, we have that one.
But we don't have the one you were doing before, where you had the, you know, you had
We have
you
that.
had screens before. Go all the way back to the beginning. Not this, not the beginning of this. You had St. Louis Post Dispatch. You
You
said
said
that.
Oh, I looked those up online.
Yeah,
That.
We have
Do
that.
we have
too.
that?
Yeah, we have both of them. Yeah.
Is that in here?
We have an email and we have.
Oh, it's in the email. That's what I'm asking.
We have both of them.
so
Oh, I don't have both of them. I just got this.
the slide, the set of slides or the data sets?
We have that.
She's got two. I got one.
I don't think she has data sets.
Pass that down, please.
Yeah, I need that.
Okay,
And it's
that,
also emailed to you.
that's just the set of slides, that's not gonna really have too much information. I can email out the
You sent it
Raw
on.
data.
raw, yeah.
You sent that.
There was a lot of,
No, what I sent was this. There's spreadsheets. And then the other thing with the MML spreadsheets is they're for the entire state.
Oh, okay.
And so I sorted by the St. Louis County and surrounding counties. So,
Sam, thank you. This is really well done. I know you got a lot of hours in this.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information to absorb.
thank you.
Any other questions about this specifically? If not, I'm gonna look for a motion to go into closed session and discuss a personnel matter.
Make a motion.
There's a motion to go into closed session and discuss a personnel matter. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Sam.
Sam.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm so used to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Councilman Sachsenheimer,
Yes.
Councilman Cleveland,
Yes.
Councilman Evans, Councilman Smith, Councilman Nelson,
Yes.
Councilman Hong,
Yes.
Councilman Campbell,
Yes.
Councilman Rosso. Yes.
Thank you. All right. Let's not take a break, let's just,
Thank you.
unless anybody requesting a break.
Understand the, proposed board structure going.
I knew what you were talking about, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And I have some things I will walk you guys in the next 30 days now that we got that Cool Valley contract signed. A 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 5-year plan. Some money-making strategies, some proposed future contracts, things that will hopefully drive some revenue in to kind of boost some of the salaries for the police department.
Oh, that was a bunch.
I
Yes,
do.
it was good, I'm done.
I thought you did a great job. I wouldn't even have the patience to
You
do
don't
it.
have electric now.
We don't have to wait for Tony to come back from single break, so.
Not mine.
Good job, Sam.
It's really
More
good.
patience than I got.
It's really
That
good.
rain pickup at all? It was just a drizzle when I got
The
it.
rain doorbell? Oh, rain.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
He was out of my mouth.
No, it didn't.
I know.
Well, are you gonna be around?
I'm going home. I am. But,
Sir?
I was frustrated.